Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Okay, so this is the kind of Saskatchewan episode. There's kind of a lot to cover off on this. So the NDP have been doing what they do best. They throw out false agenda, false allegations. They twist what these bills that they're trying to propose are actually about in order to trap the opposition to them, either it be the party or just anybody out in the public, into thinking something completely different than what they're actually trying to achieve. Now, with this whole secession movement, the NDP party have been like ramping up the rhetoric of secession. It's such a bad thing. And they started off with the Trump. They were part of not they weren't necessarily doing the elbows up. They were doing the Canada first, and we're wearing the jerseys, and they were following step foot with their federal counterparts and their brethren, the Liberal Party. Now, I'm not going to get into any of that because, like I said, I could do this for weeks and just go off on how far down the NDP have gone in the last 10 years, especially the last, 5-6 years. They are the Liberal Party. They might as well be the federal Liberal Party running a provincial party in Saskatchewan. I'm just going to kind of debunk some of the stuff that they spew, especially this Elena Young. It's such an embarrassment that I could play, like I said, over the course of the week, a whole bunch of different things because she's been trying to go out. And they've been putting, and not just her, but like Beck and all the rest of them, they've been putting out their feelers, throwing misinformation about these bills that they're trying to pass. Now, the first one, when they first started out trying to oppose the secession end of it, they were saying that they were just trying to get Mo and all of the opposition to agree that they wouldn't vote for secession, when in actuality the bill they were putting together was to ban ever having a referendum on independence, secession, or leaving Canada. That's what they were trying to pass. They were lying through their teeth to people. Then once they realized they weren't getting the feedback they wanted, and a lot of independent media like us we're getting the word out about, whoa, it's in the fine print, people, don't fall for this. They then changed it over, and now what they want to do is they want to bump up the amount of numbers needed in order to actually have a referendum. They want to double it. They want to take away democracy, and I'm going to prove that to you today. First, I want to play a little clip of Elena. You have to see the clip in order for us to kind of move ahead, so we'll just show the clip and go from there.
Good morning. Thank you for doing this.
Good morning.
What is so important to the Saskatchewan NDP about Premier Scott Moe standing up in the legislature and making a declaration like we just saw from Mark Carney?
Yeah, look, this is about the Premier of a province in Saskatchewan being able to say out loud that he's a proud Canadian, and that if there were a referendum held on leaving Canada, he would vote to stay in Canada. And somehow it's taken us a week to get to where we are today. And meanwhile, we've seen members of the government caucus affiliated with groups organizing around separating from Canada, and frankly, that's concerning. There's a higher bar for elected officials. Like I have to declare my co-op membership as an MLA. I think it's more than reasonable that MLA should have to disclose whether or not they're members of a group actively working on a referendum about leaving Canada. And
what are you?
So in other words, what she's saying is you have to expose your private life, your bedroom. That's what she's saying, pretty much, in a nutshell. You can't have independent thoughts. You have to align with the standards of not having any privacy, not having any free thought, not having any free will, not actually being willing to join organizations in order to discuss things that are going on. Now, I haven't actually got into, I looked them up. I personally so far haven't found any evidence that they are part of the separatist movement. So as far as I'm going right now, this isn't fact because I got to do a lot more research. I've done a fair amount and I can't find any proof that any sitting Sask Party are part of a separatist movement. So as far as I'm concerned right now, with all the research I've done, what she's saying is a blatant lie, which isn't a surprise because I'm going to attach her X account. So you can, if you're on X, I'm going to post it in the link and you can click on it because literally everything that she says, you can scroll down into the past and you can prove her wrong. She said the completely opposite, which we're going to get at right away here. First, I just want to, listen to a little bit more of what, verbal diarrhea. This is just crap.
You and your caucus members hearing from the public.
This is a real concern for people. Look, there's really pressing issues: cost of living, healthcare, rising crime, mental health and addictions. But people feel incredibly emotional about their country and about their province. I was talking to a friend of mine. His dad actually called me up. His dad's name's Randy. He has a mustache. He's from Moose Jaw. And this is a true story. Randy called me up to ask me how he and his car club could organize a protest outside the legislature in support of Canada.
Now, I study propaganda. This is how they word things. So first they take where they're going. They try to personalize it on some way which removes the substance from the entire thing because she wants you to feel as though she's hearing this from this special person or from special people, or it's a matter of manipulation. Instead of just going down and stating the fact, they spew stories. This is like the NDP Jagmeet always bringing up Sue, and yet we've never met Sue. Who is Sue? Sue who? Right? This is feeding off of emotion. Either the bandwagon or the wheelbarrow effect. It's kind of this. Yeah. This is. Anyways, we'll let her finish.
This is, if we've got the Randys with mustaches in their car clubs wanting to rally outside of the legislature against separatism, to me, that tells me loud and clear that this is something that normal people in Saskatchewan care a great deal about.
Unclear what the mustache has to do with anything.
Okay, so if you want to separate, you're not normal. And the way that she purposely did the mustache story, and of course the car club, is she's trying to make it seem as though manly men want to stay in Canada. This is propaganda. This is how they do it. It's all done off hook bait, and it's crap. It's absolute crap. At least this guy, the reporter, kind of caught onto it, but he didn't chuckle it and sweep it off the rug. He just caught onto it.
I like the
great mustache.
Okay, fair enough. I'll have to see a picture. Maybe he's got some wax. You concerned about the rising tensions between provinces like Alberta?
So in other words, nobody's talking about secession is where she's trying to get at. In other words, which is what? So I'm not here talking about secession. There's not, a bunch of independent groups growing at an alarming rate. Well, I'd say alarming. It's a good alarm. But yeah, this is what she's trying to say. But yet they're the ones who are pumping up the rhetoric and trying to take away your rights in the process.
And Ontario very much saying this isn't the time to talk about this.
Absolutely. Look, this is a scary time to be Canadian compared to, say, where we were 10 years ago. We weren't worried about our relationship with the United States. It's also a massive opportunity, right? We've been talking.
Notice how she skipped the lost decade, that they voted everything that the Liberal Party, the federal Liberal Party was doing, that these people backed.
About the opportunity that we have here in Saskatchewan, at the heart of Canada and across this country, to build things that we need. Pipelines, rail lines, power lines, actually connect this country. Right now in Quebec, we see a 60% support for building a pipeline east. That's wild. We have an opportunity to build this country, and we should be working to unify it, not pull it apart.
I just happened to be sitting in the gallery while you guys were having this argument in the legislative on the floor. The Premier would tell you that he doesn't want to ramp up the rhetoric. That he, by doing that makes a splashy headline that could irritate some governors, and they're trying very much to make bilateral trade agreements and have these conversations with Montana, North Dakota, states rather, that need what Saskatchewan has. What's your response to that? Because there is an element of truth to that, right?
Absolutely.
You don't want to anger the 800-pound gorilla.
Sure. So international trade is crucial to what we do, right? We're an exporting province. We export 2/3 of what we produce. And yeah, there's also opportunities for us to come together as a country, right? We could be looking to also increase our trade to other provinces. But fundamentally, what this comes down to is the fact that the Premier of Saskatchewan, who we now know has folks in his own caucus who are members of this group organizing a referendum around separatism.
She has no proof of this. I've gone through her X page. Zero proof that they've put forward. It's just accusations. And again, I have tried to find out because I want to know. Are there? Personally, I'd be curious. I'd like to know, hey, man, these are people obviously that we should be making sure they stay in power because I think we should leave. But again, she crossed right away from the question. Now she's back on the accusations again. So the question was, don't you think talking about it brings it up and makes it heated? Isn't Mo on the right path? This is the answer you get.
Premier of this province cannot stand up and say out loud, as a premier of a province in Canada, that he would vote yes to stay in Canada if a referendum were held today. It's like I said, not what we thought we'd spend the last week or two talking about in the legislature, and yet here we are. It's a pretty low bar, and seemingly we can't step over it.
So she's completely lying. She's misleading everybody. So in the first one, the whole idea is the NDP leader on Carla Beck's bill, the referendum and plebiscite. I'll blow this up a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. Was a Keep Saskatchewan in Canada Amendment Act, which will be put to legislators on Wednesday. The opposition could not provide details as the legislation was not yet before the Assembly. So in other words, this bill, it was all rhetoric that was coming out. But in other words, what the bill was, is it wanted to make written in law that you could still have referendums, you just could never have a referendum on independence, period. So what she was doing was trying to remove democracy. So this whole CTV that she did was a lie, was an absolute lie. And then the new version of the same bill now comes out, and the private members bill would double the number of signatures needed to trigger a citizen-initiated referendum in Canada. Because they were getting cremated on the fact that you were going to try and put in law that at no point in time would we ever be able to actually have a vote to save ourselves as a province and leave the country. And again, they're twisting the words around, making it seem as though, oh no, we're just trying to get Mo to say that he wouldn't himself vote to leave. This is how they're just like Singh's NDP. They're just like the federal NDP. They're just like the Liberal Party. They lie, and propaganda pushes the lie. CTV right there helped her push the lie. He should have called her out on it and said, well, no, your bill says, or then why haven't you actually put the bill? Why are you asking them to allow you to put a bill forward and already agree they'll sign it when we haven't seen the bill? They don't do that. They allow the propaganda to just keep going and going. And that's why people like me are here. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to debunk this crap. So anyways, this is the newest one, 125,000 signatures. Now, as I was going through all of having this play in the background and listening to it and kind of analyzing the last, month or so, and of course I do this more often, like a lot of my viewers know I'm a bit of a nerd. I've always got either it's, Parliament in Ottawa or Saskatchewan or Alberta. Heck, I even do Vancouver. I'm curious whenever bills and stuff are being passed. I like to hear it right from the horse's lips and get the truth. And just listen to some of the lies that Lena spews.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to be on my feet for what is my favorite part of every week, the 75-minute debate. And what a topic we have before us here, Mr. Speaker. But before I dive into the meat of this motion, I thought I would get a few things out of the way. Now, Mr. Speaker, we hear time and time and time again from members opposite some things that are inconsistent with the public record and indeed the record in this House. So I want to make sure the members opposite, the member from PA Carlton, plug in that earpiece, listen up so that no member opposite is in danger of misleading the House by misspeaking on something that has already been clarified. Now, Mr. Speaker, there is a lot to be frustrated with in this country. We're going to talk about a lot of it later, Mr. Speaker. Bill C-69, not something supported by either party in this House. The carbon tax, consumer or industrial, also not supported by any party in this House. The oil and gas cap, the clean electricity regulations, not supported by any party in this House. And lest I forget the methane cap as well, also something not supported by either party in this House. The tariffs on...
All right. This is so easy to do. Trent Weatherspoon with the NDP said if elected, his party would focus on developing more renewable energy projects with the goal of 50% non-emitting electricity by 2030 and 100% emission-free electricity by 2050. I can keep going back further and further and further in time. Now, I didn't actually check to see when she was elected into Parliament, but for her to say that nobody in her party has ever done this, there are people within her party that have been there for a long time. They were part of it. Yes, they did want every single thing the Liberals put through. They agreed on it. And we can just keep going and going and going. By 2030, the NDP would see Saskatchewan move to a 50% renewable and non-emitting electricity generation, with the legislative target of 100% emissions-free electricity by 2050. Geothermal power production would be encouraged, as would small-scale power generation, including municipal First Nations and Métis communication and growing power. In a broader context, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. I'll make sure I always post all of my links in there. Anybody, you can literally go into search, just take it back 4 to 8 years, and you will see these people have been on board with every single step. They've literally walked lockstep. So she's getting up there and she's saying, "Oh, Mr. Speaker," kind of reminds me of the Freeland insanity. The fact is, they want to shut down the oil and gas. By putting these targets in, it says right there, you just got to read the fine print. Obviously, if you want to shut down and go to a 100% renewable energy, you're shutting down the oil and gas sector. I'm sorry, Elena, you're full of crap. So I just debunked that completely. Now we're going to move on. Then you got stuff like this, right, with Carla Beck, where they're having this rally in Regina calls on province to move towards net zero emissions by 2035. Now, people rallied and they make it sound like there's a whole bunch of people there. There's about 20 people there, maybe 30, 35 tops. I looked at a couple different angles. Not a lot of people at all. Again, media trying to make it seem like it's a big thing. In the meantime, they say, well, there's only 100 or a couple hundred that were in front of the Alberta legislator, where there was actually almost 1,000. In fact, some of the pictures I was looking at on the people who showed up there 5 days ago with this whole push for Alberta independence, I would guess there was well over 1,000 people. There might have been 15 or even 1,800 people. And like I said, I didn't go crazy looking at a lot of that footage. I had focus on other things for episodes. But anyways, we are one of the only provinces that are saying we can't do this and everyone else is working towards that goal, said rally organizer Sydney Taylor. She noted the timing of the rally planned weeks ago turned out to be perfect for the federal government announced draft regulations on Thursday for a net zero emission electric grid by 2035. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. And to achieve this, Taylor noted Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck issued a statement Thursday saying the 2035 goal is unachievable due to Saskatchewan's years of inaction under the Sask Party government, but Taylor disagreed, saying the transition is still very possible. In other words, these are all NDPers. Once again, I will post the link on there. You can check it out. Yeah. I'm sorry, Elena. You're full of crap. Anyways, I will post her link to X, so anybody on X, you can go and you can scroll down and you can see that literally you can just keep scrolling and scrolling. There's a lot of really blatant lies on here, a lot of misinformation. I was actually surprised that she wasn't really being called out on more of it, because there is literally a lot of crap. Oh, and what's that? Elbows up? Oh, so she is a liberal dressed in NDP clothing. Like I said, I'll post a link. You can go through here. You can debunk everything she says. You can go back years, and you just keep seeing more and more crap. Anyways, moving on to legislator today.
The talk of separation has the potential to cause serious generational harm to the Saskatchewan economy, to cost us jobs, investment, even head offices. And Canadians have seen this before, Mr. Speaker. There's a reason that the Bank of Montreal is now headquartered in Toronto. And I don't want to see that kind of damage happen here in Saskatchewan. So today, will the Premier tell the separatists in Toronto? And I don't want to see that kind of damage happen.
Sorry about that. There was a little bit of a skip in the feed. So that's the problem with following this stuff live. A lot of times when I'm doing it, all of a sudden it'll kind of it'll track and recount to where it is. So my apologies for the little bit of the. Anyways, back at her.
Happen here in Saskatchewan. So today, will the Premier tell the separatists in his own caucus and those who supported his election that they're doing more harm than good?
I recognize the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I would point out that the Bank of Nova Scotia is also centred in their headquarters are in Toronto as well, Mr. Speaker, and there's no referendum there. However, Mr. Speaker, most certainly, Mr. Speaker, this government is very aware of how we can grow our provincial economy by attracting investment into the province of Saskatchewan to develop the natural resources, Mr. Speaker, to develop the opportunity for the entirety of Saskatchewan people, regardless of where they live, Mr. Speaker. That's why you're seeing global or international mining companies, food processing companies, value-added agricultural companies that are investing literally billions of dollars into our province, creating not only those construction jobs, Mr. Speaker, but creating those ongoing operational jobs as we attain a higher value of exports, Mr. Speaker, and send that to some 160 countries around the world, and that's working. Mr. Speaker, today Saskatchewan is leading the nation when it comes to the lowest unemployment rate of all provinces in Canada. Over 20,000 jobs have been created by that investment over the course of the last year, Mr. Speaker. Most certainly, Saskatchewan is in a very strong position, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to continuing the job growth, continuing the investment and traction, and continuing on our endeavour, Mr. Speaker, as a government to provide opportunities for all that live here and all that will very soon choose to live here.
Now, like I said on a previous episode, I was actually in shock. I really was. On how well Mo and his party have done. And not just, I knew they were doing good. But when I was going through a lot of the legislation, a lot of the bills and stuff that they were passing, I was seeing the things that they were doing that were really cementing the economy in Canada. They have very good business sense. Now, obviously, I don't agree with a lot of the things that they do. I do agree with I shouldn't say that. I don't agree with some of the stuff they do. I agree with a lot of the stuff they do. But they have also been following a lot of the same path in order to create what Daniel Smith is after. And it's not the separation. It's not secession. It's to create more strength within the province, within the country of Canada. That's what they're after. And he has passed bills trying to protect the gun owners. He has created the Marshal Service, which is up north right now. And hopefully, with you guys helping out, you guys can get out there and petition all of your representatives and try to get the RCMP removed and the funding that we pay federally to them given back to the province, and help to create our own independent police force. This is crucial, people. We have to remove ourselves. We have to sever every tie to the federal government before we can even contemplate getting a referendum on secession. This has to be done. So for all you out there that are eager to just jump on there and just get out, first you have to do the footwork. You got to get out. You got to make up pamphlets. Get your organizations together. Make sure that you share that. You've got to spread that around. And as well, the Saskatchewan media, I've been kind of flicking through the few different that we have. They're trying to hide it. So when the polls came out, they actually found that there was only about 60% of Saskatchewanites, a little over 60%, that were actually knew that this was like a lot of people were talking about it. That's how well the media has been holding information back. I'm sure the numbers are, we fell below Alberta now. Saskatchewan has usually always been a little bit of ahead of Alberta for the amount of people per capita that wanted to leave. We've just fallen behind about a week ago. Now we're slightly behind them by about 2 or 3%. And I believe this is because local mainstream media, CTV, CBZ, all the rest of these state funded, they're still state funded, they're all part of that same branching system, are propagandizing. They're trying to hold that, to suppress that. And Mo's doing the same thing, which, hey, for what he wants, more power as a province within the Federation of Canada, that's his goal. Your job out there is to make sure you keep pressing him and make sure he's speaking about it. And the first thing you can do is like, share, and subscribe. Get it out there so more and more people can actually bear witness to the fact of how many people are ready to leave and will help and will try everything possible to make Saskatchewan better, to give us the independence, to give us back our freedoms, especially with the reign of terror that is going to be coming down on us in the next few years with this Carney government. This Carney is, wow, he is Trudeau 2.0. We went from a foot soldier to a general. We're in trouble. Anyways, back to debate.
I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Certainly, Mr. Speaker, opportunities exist, but people are wondering why this Premier continues to poo-poo the threat of separatism, Mr. Speaker, to downplay the threat of separatism. Mr. Speaker, I think it's pretty clear.
So who's making a big deal of separatism?
His pal, Danielle Smith, said the quiet part out loud last week. When she said that
she's using this to try and garner votes. She's using this as a way to gain support. That's all she's doing. She's not doing it because she thinks it's in Canada or in Saskatchewan's interest. She's not doing it because she thinks that the right to be able to have a referendum, the right to have a referendum it should be there. I've proven that already by the two different types of bills they're trying to pass here. All they care about is power. They don't care about you. It's just sinful. It really is.
This referendum that she's steering is entirely to save her own political hide, Mr. Speaker.
Who's doing what to save their political hide?
I think that the Premier in this chamber is doing exactly the same thing by refusing to call out separatism despite all of the harm and potential harm that it will cause. Mr. Speaker, is the Premier seriously willing to put Saskatchewan jobs on the line to save his own job?
I recognize the Premier.
I heard two statements in there. One is people are wondering, and two, people are poo-pooing, Mr. Speaker. With respect to who is wondering, people across Canada are wondering how in Saskatchewan we are able to attract the billions of dollars investments into developing the industries that are creating over 20,000 jobs just in this last year, over 100,000 jobs since 2007. People across Canada are wondering how Saskatchewan has changed, how Saskatchewan has gone from an area of the poorest job growth and poorest job development in the nation to leading the nation when it comes to creating jobs, Mr. Speaker, and attracting investment. So, People are wondering what this government is poo-pooing, Mr. Speaker, is a bill that would double the criteria for a citizen-led referendum or petition or plebiscite, Mr. Speaker, so that they could have their voice heard in between the election cycles that we have, Mr. Speaker, to double the 125,000 person criteria or benchmark that we have today to 250,000, which is the effort and the initiative of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, to have that level of participation to create or to precipitate a plebiscite in this province, Mr. Speaker. That's more support than the NDP have gotten since 1991, Mr. Speaker. That means that they would not even have a voice on the floor of this Assembly, Mr. Speaker, if that's the criteria that is required.
That was very well said, and he is correct.
I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier tells quite a story, but here's the facts. Under that Premier, he has the worst full-time job creation record in the entire country. And you know what doesn't help when it comes to job growth? That is refusing to stand up to the talk of separatism, refusing to make clear just how damaging that threat could be to people in this province, to jobs and the economy. Now, Mr. Speaker, last week I brought forward urgent legislation to raise the threshold for a vote on separatism and to block that government from imposing such a vote. Now, the Premier, he's promised that we could have a free vote on this issue.
Right.
But you know what? This morning, Mr. Speaker, his communications team, they tried to undermine that vote. The Premier says one thing, but his actions show something completely different. Today, I'm going to ask him a pretty simple question. Will he commit to moving this bill forward and to that free vote that he promised in the chamber today? No more delay. Let's put this to bed. No more political games from that Premier.
I recognize the Premier.
250,000 people supporting your initiative. Is that the criteria that the Leader of the Opposition feels is necessary to have a vote and a voice on the floor of this Assembly?
I recognize the member from Regina Wall Shakers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
We find ourselves in the middle of yet another fiasco.
They're just like the parent Federalist Party. It's pretty embarrassing. And Mo's doing a great job for what he wants, which is, like I said, a stronger independence, a stronger province with more authority within that province, within the Federation of Canada. And yes, the NDP are using this for exactly what they are accusing the Sask Party of wanting. Unbelievable. Pretty crazy times. Pretty crazy times. Now, I pulled this up. This was in the past. I was actually looking for some documentation, and while I was kind of scrolling through, I found a small video with this. And I just wanted to kind of play it because I'm sure a lot of people, and maybe the NDP, should be kind of listening because they were aware of the separatist movement a long time ago.
The Western Canadian provinces and territories for a while felt like they were ignored. With the majority of Canada's population and wealth in the east, and with many resources in their own provinces, they felt they had an unfair relationship. A lot of secessionist movements in Canada were in the west. The height of this feeling continued into the 1970s and 1980s, but some pro-independence parties still exist today, even though they never win anything. Well, it was revealed in 2014 that the Premier of Saskatchewan at the time of the Second Quebec Independence Referendum in 1995, Roy Romanow, made secret cabinet meetings to discuss the ramifications of the Quebec yes victory. They discussed three possibilities. 1. Saskatchewan independence. 2. Saskatchewan teaming up with Alberta and British Columbia for an independent nation, or 3, Saskatchewan being annexed by the United States. The Premier said he was glad he never had to go further with this and that he in fact loved Canada, but he also felt it was his duty to help his province's citizens. Regardless, it can show how one event can affect many others. I mean, imagine if Canada ended up like this, or this, or this, all because 54,288 people decided not to mark a check mark on a piece of paper.
Pretty wild. Now, this video was made 8 years ago, and he's talking about stuff that was going on 20, 25, 30 years ago, all the way to like 40 years ago, after the first turd was in office, the first major socialist. Now, there's a petition online. I've gone over this petition. It is very well written. This is for Saskatchewan. I will share it. It'll be in the description below. The writers of this did a great job to end federal injustice, Saskatchewan's path to sovereignty. Now, the only problem is, and yes, I'm going to share this, but the problem with this is, like I said, we're not ready. We need to remove the police. We need to remove ourselves from the federal pension system and create our own. And there are a few other little fine details that we're going to have to work out first. So I don't think this will make it in time or get the numbers, because I don't think, obviously, like I stated earlier, if only 60% of Saskatchewan, people in Saskatchewan are even aware that that secession is such a huge ideal in its province, then the chance of this passing is slim and none. But not to say the least, this was incredibly well written. They went right. I mean, they nailed everything. They did. It's a really good job. So, like I said, I'm gonna post the link below. I signed it. I urge you to sign it too. I don't think it'll flourish, but who knows? Maybe it will. And maybe, who knows, maybe it'll wake up enough people with enough signatures that it can get a little wee bit more airtime on some larger podcasters, videocasters, and media. This is why I need you to like, share, and subscribe to help get this type of stuff out there, as well as the facts. Sorry, just the facts that I use this channel to get out there. Now, a little wee bit further on. Mainstream is doing federally. You're going to start seeing a lot more of this. Now that Carney has won, and there's a chance that he's going to get a majority. There's 3 contested ridings that are up right now that there's a chance that they could pick up another seat. If they pick up 2 more, they've got it. They've got a majority. Let alone the fact that there's very weak NDP in there who are going to lose their status, who are bankrupt. As well as the Green Party, the drunk May, who could very easily just flip, and then that's the end of it. And they all think the exact same anyways. I think the only difference is the greed amongst each other to have some type of hierarchy, and because I'm the boss of this party, and they claim fundamental differences, but they all vote together on all the same crap. So they might as well be the same party. But if they do end up getting a majority, you're going to see a lot more of this type of propaganda wrapping up. So as for the auto sector, I've been warning and warning and warning. That's why I keep urging you people, if you watch it, just please, like, share, and subscribe. Get it out there. People need to see this. And I can tell in my algorithms, I've actually got a lot of people from Ontario who watch and who are subscribed. And thank you very much. Got to try and get the voices out there. I know it's too late now. The auto sector is definitely on its way out. I'm going to post Trump's a little clip that he did at the end here today. I just wanted to show these first. This is propaganda at its best, desensitizing people to get ready for what's to come. But they're gonna do it softly. That's how they do it. They do it softly.
We know that Canada's relationship with China.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
We know that Canada's relationship with China has been tense. It was wrapped up by those 2024 tariffs on Chinese EVs, steel and aluminum products, and then China retaliated, as we just mentioned. But the Chinese ambassador to Beijing said that China wants to partner with Canada to push back against American bullying, is how they described it. Why would it make sense to remove restrictions on China, or what would need to happen for this relationship to improve?
Now, in this, they're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And I'll put this together near the end. The first one is soft on China, because China owns the Liberal Party. That's the first part that they're pacifying here. But listen carefully to what else they're trying to desensitize Canada into.
This is an excellent question because, of course, China is the 2nd largest economy on planet Earth. $19 trillion GDP, second only to the United States at 30 trillion. Huge market because no country is self-sufficient. China is no exception. They're the largest importer of natural gas, for example, huge importer of agricultural products. So to your question, Canada adopted the 100% tariff and to be in sync, if you will, with American policy. President Biden, not Trump, not here to defend Trump at all, but it was Biden who put the 100% tariff on EVs. And there's a reason for that. And I've been teaching in China since 1997, once a year in an MBA program. And I've ridden in many different Chinese EVs because my students pick me up at the hotel to take me to the class each day, and they take turns. And when you look at the IEA data...
Do you see the factories? Do you see any people in there? Yeah, auto industry, if you voted Liberal... Previous episodes, I've been warning about this way ahead of the election. Unbelievable.
China has 60% world market share in EVs. Why? Because they're far less expensive and they're a better quality. And the American and the Europeans are not competitive in EVs. So that's why they put this tariff on. However, when you drill down, we are not making small EVs. I mean, the Chinese make a Seagull that's $15,000. And so the idea that it would be a threat to our auto industry is problematic because we produce overwhelmingly huge vehicles, 2-ton SUVs and F-150 trucks and that sort of thing. So,
okay, so I want to debunk something on there too, okay? We live in a huge country, and the Canadianas, we like our outdoors. Now, the reason that SUVs and trucks are such a huge seller is because they do a lot of towing, and there's this thing called the GVW, and you cannot haul a big boat behind a car that doesn't weigh enough to control it. These are laws. Another thing, these vehicles, battery powered vehicles, weigh over a third more than their competitor combustion engine in their same class. For the most part, you could say more than a third in weight. So, now you would say, well, then that goes with they should have a great towing capability. No, because the way especially the Asian vehicles are made, they are a unibody design. You cannot put a hitch strong enough in order to tow a vehicle. And then there's a third catch du detoire, which is the car itself is already so weighted that that's all the vehicle can do to support itself. So it can't sustain more weight. And this is why there's so many articles and information out there that people are warning how these things are destroying the city roads and the highways. They are so heavy, let alone the amount of rubber they burn. They go through tires in almost twice the amount of, they go through 2 times, just shy of 2 times the amount of tires than a regular combustion engine goes through. So when these people talk, they just blurt crap out there with zero evidence. No, they don't make better vehicles. And no, you can't remove vehicles here that are made for towing, or you would never be able to go camping or fishing or haul garbage to the dump or 1,000 million billion other things like craziness. But I'll let him finish.
And as a consequence, we've alienated the Chinese, and they've slapped significant tariffs on a sector that's very important to Canada, which is natural resources and agriculture. So there's the broad argument.
Well, let's bring agriculture into this discussion because, we've spoken with canola farmers who say they were frustrated that the federal government put this tariff on EVs, knowing that it would come back on them, and it did. So in order for this relationship to improve on the auto sector, what would canola farmers be calling for?
Well, let me just go back to the auto sector for a moment. I mean, President Trump has thus far, from the very beginning until now, has been consistent on one thing. He said the U.S. doesn't need our cars. They don't want Canada to make cars. And so there are very profound, serious questions of whether the car industry, manufacturing industry, will remain in Canada. The industry itself and former Prime Minister Trudeau said, if the 25% tariffs remain in place on the auto industry is finished. It's not sustainable. I agree with that assessment, by the way. We've got to start preparing for the day when we are maybe possibly going to exit auto industry. As horrible as that will be to people in Southern Ontario, Australia did it in the late 90s. It didn't devastate Australia. Australia is now higher average income per capita than we are in Canada. But we've got to start preparing for that day. And we've got to diversify, as we all know, our exports, such as, oh my goodness, agricultural exports to China. So that's one of the reasons, I think, why we've got to start looking at this and saying we've got to start developing alternatives to the United States to reduce our dependency on the United States. And a good place to start would be getting rid of those 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs, which would make them much more affordable to Canadian consumers, enable Canada to achieve its GHG emissions targets.
There you go. You're going to hear a lot more of this because they want to desensitize you into thinking, oh, the auto industry, don't worry. They were already doing this when they were, and by the way, at the beginning when he says how the Trudeau government was pushed into putting these 100% tariffs on, that is false. Trudeau was already spending billions of dollars, yours and my tax dollars, on EV plants, battery plants, to try and create its own EV industry here in Canada. And his goal was not only the socialist idea of having Canada-made electric cars, but removing jobs. Because think about it, Carney's following through on this. 2035, no combustion engines, gone. And again, I urge you to watch previous episodes, especially the one that I just did here, exposing why Trump loves Carney and the Liberals. That's the best. You couldn't, for what Trump wants, every single thing that he wants and needs in order for him to create his goal comes from having the Liberals in power. Everything. Previous episode. It's all there. And I've been talking about this for a long time, especially when it comes to the auto industry. So get ready, because Trudeau wanted the 100% tariffs. He doesn't care about small votes. All he cares about is passing enough of a lie to the center 3% geographic area that controls 97% of Canada. That's all the Liberal Party cares about. They will come out before an election and say, oh, we care about everybody, like Carney touring all over. Oh, I love you, I'm an Albertan. Ask any Albertan if they think he's an Albertan. I was born and raised in Alberta. That man is not an Albertan. Knowing and going through and reading some of his book, doing all the research I've done on what he's done in the past, that is not an Albertan. Again, previous episodes, the man's evil. All he cares about is his pocketbook, all of his investors, and pushing his socialist idealism on society and humanity. That's not Canadian, let alone Albertan or Saskatchewan, or for the most part, scary. So, again, this guy's blatantly lying. They used it as an excuse right now, saying, oh, no, it was Biden that pushed him over to doing it. Trudeau at any point in time could have fought back. Well, we know he's spineless and he's a piece of crap and his IQ's 86, but still, he could have fought back, but it was in his interest. It was in his interest. Now, moving on to a little wee bit more desensitization. Like I said, this is going to start getting more and more and more. You're going to see, and this is what propaganda does. So I'm just giving you a forewarning. I got one more small clip before I get on to the Trump clip that everybody's posting, where somebody took a little wee edit out of it and is sharing it around. I'm going to first of all give you the link to the entire presser he had so that you can look at it in its entirety instead of whatever everybody's who's stealing all these clips. It drives me nuts when people do that. Do your own homework. A lot of people say, man, that guy copied that off you, or he copied it, and doesn't that make you mad? Yes, I get a little bit mad. To be honest, I'm just glad that it's getting out there. But really take a look at where people are getting their information from, because if all they're doing is taking everybody else's little wee clips in order to build an episode, you really have to wonder, are they just taking talking points? And a lot of them, what they'll do is they will take a clip, and in order for them to seem like they know what they're talking about, they'll run a question through AI. And then, while they're recording themselves showing the clip, they will read off the AI version to make them sound like they know exactly what they're talking about. And of course, it comes true, because a lot of times you'll see the clip, and then you'll see a clip and an edit, and you'll see a clip and an edit. Whereas with myself, you will rarely see where I actually have to clip and edit. Usually, everything I do is live. I do it in a single cut. If I make a mistake, I will redo the whole episode. Sometimes I will do mild soft editing, but I'm not using AI. I'm reading all the articles. I'm watching all the interviews, watching all the pressers in order to make sure I get all of the information, and then that allows me to get what I need to fact check. Then I have to go through all of these different processes and fact checking the information. So just so you know, yes, it makes me mad that, and I've even had people take clips right off of my channel, and I've actually, where they'll put their little squares, you'll see it in the top screens, right? They'll hide my marker, my watermark, and whatever. That's why I need you to like, share, and subscribe. But yeah, you can always see, people that are really doing the work by the evidence below. So I urge you guys, when you're watching this, and don't jump on the bandwagon and give a lot of these people this type of credit, when all they're doing is they're just scrolling through X or scrolling through certain people. And what they'll do too is they'll follow somebody under guys. They'll actually have like 2 or 3 different YouTube's accounts. So they'll follow me, they'll follow Creighton, they'll follow all these other people, and then they'll build their news stories up from that. Just drives me nuts. But it is what it is, right? Like I said, as long as the news is getting out, it's a good thing. It's just, you got to make sure you support your independent media, especially the people who are doing the homework. So anyways, I'm going to do this one last little CTV. This is just embarrassing. Desensitizing Canada.
To push back on, quote, bullying by the U.S., Wang Di is China's ambassador to Canada. I spoke with him for his first broadcast interview since he took on the role. Here's a part of our conversation. Have a listen. Hi, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to welcome you here to studio. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Ambassador, I wanted to start off and ask you what your view is of the state of the relationship between Canada and China.
I think there is a very good historical foundation for.
This is China's ambassador to Canada, and he can't speak English. Think of that first. If they were really serious, you think they would at least get a English-speaking ambassador. You would think.
For the China-Canada relationship.
And what does that mean for the future of the relationship, Ambassador?
For the future, we're full of confidence about the relationship. As I said, there is a very good historical foundation for the relationship, and the two countries enjoy great complementarities, and we don't have any fundamental conflict of interests.
When you talk about free trade, though, and the value...
No conflict of interest, eh? Now, if you tune into my previous episodes, you'll see I'm a Sam Cooper fan. Greatest journalist in Canada, possibly the world, one of the best. Yeah, they own the Liberal Party. They have been messing with our elections for far too long and getting away with it, especially the longer the Liberal Party stays in power and keeps appointing all of the people who are supposed to be looking into election interference and charging people. So this entire piece is propaganda.
That both Canada and China places on it. Right now, it's not free trade completely between Canada and China. There are tariffs in place on Chinese-made electric vehicles. There are counter tariffs that China has applied to about $3 billion worth of agricultural products coming from Canada. Are there conversations happening right now between China and the federal government about removing any of those tariffs on either side?
Well, last year, since Canada imposed unilateral tariffs on Chinese products, we have been maintaining communication with the Canadian side. But unfortunately, in disregard of China's dissuasion efforts, Canada still decided to impose those tariffs on Chinese products. So China launched an investigation, and the investigation believes that these unilateral tariffs imposed by Canada are discriminatory against Chinese products. So China launched countermeasures against that.
The Canadian government says that those initial tariffs were necessary because of a very high level of subsidization. So again, protectionist measures in China, that's their view of why they impose them. I asked the question about whether or not there have been conversations about taking those down or the counter tariffs down because the environment since October when they were applied has changed, given what's going on with the United States. Do you have any indication right now that the federal government has conveyed, for example, to you or to your colleagues, that there is the possibility that those tariffs are removed, that the EV tariffs are removed?
Well, I think the ball is in the court of Canada. The Canadian government has expressed multiple times to us that they wish to communicate with us on these issues. But of course, the federal elections happened, the new government is being formed. I look forward that in a very short future, both sides will be able to start talking about these issues as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So she does go in there and she does kind of question him about the two Michaels and how the lies involved with that and how all of a sudden they were released when all of a sudden the CEO that was being held here, the charges were dropped, and then she does no hardlining. And in the way that she words the questions, again, I'll post the whole link so you can look through it yourself. Bear witness to it. You can see it. It's softballing. It is propaganda. It's absolutely disgusting. The Liberal Party, it came out again. Previous episodes, they knew they were talking to China and they were telling China not to release the two Michaels for the Liberal Party's political gain. This is how evil and corrupt the Liberal Party are and how in cahoots they are with this propaganda. I urge you to watch previous episodes. I go right through it. I nail the people involved. I show what they did. The evidence is all there. They were literally using China, working together to hold the two Michaels longer than they needed to be in order to gain and garner votes. Using propaganda. Think about that. And here they are again. Now with this new Liberal, they call it the New Liberal Party. It's the same damn 10-year lost, destructive party with a new puppet. It's disgusting. Now, on to the clip everybody's using. He's at a... He's holding... He's swearing in Witkoff. And it's here where he's taking questions. And through the questions, and I'll let you hear it. In fact, I'll rewind it even a little wee bit more so you can catch on to what's going on. He throws it out there while he's talking about how everybody wants to deal with America now and how all of a sudden they're making concessions. So everything that Trump or Carney was running, oh, I'm tough, I'm going to deal with him, blah, 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 because Poilievre will get in bed with him, is a lie. Poilievre was the one who wanted to literally get our resources out, crush the green agenda, expose all of the money laundering, the corruption, the Chinese interference. Carney, on the other hand, is a lapdog of this man.
And what about the United Kingdom?
They're offering various trade concessions, apparently cars, steel, digital services.
They're offering us concessions? Yes. I hope so.
They do want to make a deal very badly.
Did you say your guests here, are you discussing tariffs with business?
No, I think that United Kingdom, like every other country, they want to be go shopping in the United States of America. China wants to, very much wants to make a deal. They all do. But I would say that every country wants to make a deal, and not the ones they had in the past where we were like, look, we were being ripped off by every country practically without exception in the entire world. And those days are over. Those days are over. And, I said before in our meeting with the new and very talented Prime Minister of Canada that we have some very big announcement to make. It's not about trade. It's about something else, but it's going to be a truly earth-shattering and positive development for this country and for the people of this country. And that'll take place sometime within the next few days.
Now, I'll post the entire clip. The link will be there. You can go through it, judge for yourself. I'm not going to throw anything out there yet. I have a few different little things that are coming out. It could very well be that it has to do with the military alliance. It sounds like there could be some rumblings of a northern base being put in. There's also some talks that maybe this could be linked to the icebreakers that the States wants to put through. Again, there's nothing concrete, so and there's other stuff as well. So I don't know what he's talking about. I got an idea. Nothing good enough that I'm going to put my name behind anyways. But like I said, the entire clip's there, not just the little 2-second soundbite that everybody else puts out there. I do the full homework. So there you go. It's in the description. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you support your independent media, please. It's important. It really is important to help not only me grow the channel, but in order to get the word out, to wake people up and start, getting them to see the facts. Sorry, just the facts. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are, punch the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. I am sorry I had to divide today's into two, and they're still quite long, an hour apiece. But I wanted to make sure everybody got all the information needed in order to understand what's going on between Alberta and Saskatchewan and the growth of the independent movement. I also said on the last episode that I am actually looking into doing another channel where I want to do kind of Buffalo news. So the western independent areas, Alberta and Saskatchewan, probably parts of northern BC. I've secured already the ability to do the weather end of it. I'm having issues with sports because there's so much licensing to it, and I don't make any money, and it'll take a long time before this news channel could make money. But I am putting a shout out. I am putting a live want ad for any of you out there that live in Saskatchewan, Regina, Estevan, Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton, anywhere within these two provinces that want to be part of this. I would appreciate your help. If you've got a phone, you're not afraid of being on camera and asking tough questions, you could help us create an entirely new news network and help get rid of the propaganda arm of the federal government, which is another big step that has to be done in order for the West to be free from the chains of Ottawa. So if you're interested, let me know. You can contact me at CanadianCitizenJournal@gmail.com. The link is in my actual page. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Stay informed.